Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Monday, June 4th regular meeting, public hearing, and workshop of the Hyde Park Town Board. Please join me while we pledge allegiance to our flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, may I have a motion to accept the minutes of May 21st meeting?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we have ahead of us a public hearing, but I'd also like to invite anyone from the public to come up and speak on the resolutions only, if they'd like to. Actually, I'm going to waive it, the resolutions only, because we do have someone who would like to speak about a dear friend, and I don't want to make you wait through the entire meeting. So anyone who would like to come up and comment on any of the resolutions or any matter of town concern, please join us at the podium and state your name and address. Yeah, please do. Thank you. I think it's you.
Okay, I'm Susan EAGAN, and I live at 32 Old Post Road in Statsburg. And thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to tell you a little bit about Barbara WANSOR, who recently retired from the food pantry. Supervisor Rohr and Town Board members, on behalf of the volunteers of the Hyde Park Food Pantry at Regina Challey, I would like to take this time to speak about our recently retired volunteer director, Barbara WANSOR, who for 25 years has worked tirelessly to help those in need in our community. Barbara, a resident of Statsburg, has always demonstrated a spirit of volunteerism. She has been a member of many community organizations. Barbara is one of the founding members of the Friends of the Statsburg Library, a member of SAVE, Statsburg Association for Village Efforts, and is a longtime board member of Lewis Gordon Norrie Playground Incorporated, to name a few. Of all the organizations mentioned above, Barbara put her heart and soul into the running of the Hyde Park Food Pantry. There was no task too big or too small that did not fall on Barbara's shoulders. During her time at the food pantry, there were a few moves. The first location was the Reformed Dutch Church, next the old police station on Route 9G, then the St. James Chapel, and finally the building we currently occupy at Regina Challey. There were trials and tribulations that Barbara had to deal with during her years of service at the food pantry, but none were insurmountable to Barbara. At those times, she gave it a go and moved steadily onward, being the fearless leader to all the volunteers who would do anything for Barbara. We knew Barbara always gave 110%. Barbara would go above and beyond for our clients by showing them respect and compassion. If they came to the food pantry or called her at home with questions or problems, she would always try to find a way to assist them. Barbara would probably find me remiss if I did not acknowledge that without the continuing generosity of the community, the support of her husband David, and the dedication and support of the volunteers, the food pantry would not be the viable institution it is today. Thank you, Barbara, for being the caring, generous, and dedicated person that you are. Sincerely, Susan EAGAN, on behalf of the food pantry volunteers.
Well, thank you, Susan. That's so nice. Thank you, Susan. It was very touching and well-deserved. And thank you, Barbara. Appreciate all you're doing for our community. It's great. Yes. Yeah, thank you.
Wow, sweet.
Okay, so the next item on our agenda, is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak? No? Okay. Is the public hearing. So I'm going to ask the clerk to please go ahead and read the public hearing notice.
Please take notice that the Hyde Park Town Board shall conduct a public hearing on the adoption of proposed local law C of the year 2018, Town of Hyde Park, entitled A Local Law to Amend Chapter 108 of the Town Code with regard to regulation of signs on June 4th, 2018 at 7:05 p.m. at the Hyde Park Town Hall located at 4383 Albany Post Road, Hyde Park, New York. The purpose of said local law is to amend certain provisions to the town code with regard to regulation of sign, to ensure the provisions are content neutral, to eliminate certain amortization requirements of non-conforming signs, and to amend the code with regard to the number of freestanding signs permitted. A copy of said local law is on file for inspection at the office of the town clerk during regular business hours. Any person desiring to be heard on said local law shall be permitted to do so at the time of the public hearing. By order of the Town Board of the Town of Hyde Park, dated May 22nd, 2018, Hyde Park, New York, Donna McGrogan, Town Clerk.
Okay, well, thank you. So just to briefly talk about the genesis of this law, there were case law changes that reflected the requirement to be neutral on the content of signs. So that really started a conversation between the town board and the planning board. And we asked the town attorney to go ahead and incorporate these changes by looking at other laws. And I think we have a good approximation, and we don't see anyone here for public comment, but we did receive a letter back from the county that just stated it was a matter of local concern, so that was good. But the other important part of this law is, and Ken, I know that you could speak to this because Ken was the liaison to the Chamber of Commerce for a number of years, and I don't know if you want to tell us about some of your feedback that you had received from the chamber members about the requirement to come into conformity with all signs.
Right, I mean, we have a lot of old-time businesses here in Hyde Park where their signs were legal at that time when they had their signs put up. And to take down a perfectly good sign that they have now to try to conform to the new law that we had in place was very expensive. For some of them, it would have been a deep hardship for them. So they requested that they would be grandfathered in, but then when they needed to replace their signs, or if they did any type of improvements, then they would conform to the new law that they have today. And so we had many discussions going back and forth between John Capola when he was the chamber president and Bob DeLarme and several others. I know you were part of those discussions, so I'm extremely happy that we're able to be, business friendly and help and assist in this matter, and I think it's a good thing for the town.
Good, and I don't know that we have received any comments. Donna, have you received any comments? So, nor have I, but I know that the chamber did support it. So, I don't know, Warren, do you have anything else that you would like to add?
No,
Okay.
we struggle to make our current sign law consistent to the best we can with a recent Supreme Court decision, Reed versus the Town of Gilbert, which is it's a warning to municipalities that you cannot discriminate in your sign regulations on the basis of content unless you have quite a valid reason to do so. It's not an easy decision to comply with, and we reviewed the law pretty carefully and had meetings with our zoning administrator and planning board chair and our attorney to the planning board, as well as members of the town board. And I think we've made we hope the law is perfect, but as close as perfect as we can in terms of making sure that it's we're not discriminating and violating the holding of the Supreme Court. And also there are many cases in New York State prior to that Supreme Court decision which have held the same. And we have a couple other changes that we made to the law, the amortization requirement, and we've added a clarification regarding the number of freestanding signs, which was requested by the planning board. So all in all, we hope that the town will be happy with the law, and we'll see how it goes.
So this was circulated to both county planning and the planning board, and we
I
haven't
haven't heard from the planning
from the
board.
planning board, I don't think, but
So we should wait until next.
to
Their
close.
meeting is in 2 days.
Right.
So
they
we
wouldn't
close
have
the
time.
public hearing at the next meeting?
Right, I
Is
think
that-
we should.
Oh, so keep it open until then?
Yeah, and the county planning did recommend that we review the guidance memo from Department of State, which I did very carefully,
Okay.
and used that in making the amendments to the law, so
So
we
then,
satisfy that requirement.
Okay, so then we would need a motion to continue it to the 18th?
Sure.
Yes, may I have a motion to do that?
Make a motion?
And a second?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Actually, did I call for public comment on that? Would anyone like to comment?
Yeah, you did.
Oh,
You did.
okay,
I thought you
I did,
did.
okay. All right, I don't get sense that there was anyway, okay. All righty, so then we'll continue it to the 18th. So the next item on our agenda is we have a wonderful Eagle Scout here, and we have a certificate that we would like to present to him. His name is Alex BYRUM. Would you mind coming up, Alex? And I'd like to present this certificate to you because of your very, very nice work at DOTY Avenue Park, and offer my congratulations to you as well for completion of your Eagle Scout project. So, see you, and your mom's taking a picture. And we're at the same height now, so that's so
I
here
still
go.
got you.
And thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Step on down.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Congratulations.
Well, you just want to display how.
Absolutely. Stay right there.
I was only
You
a
too?
10 Scouts.
I tried to get started.
My brother was an Eagle Scout.
Oh, God.
Mom and Dad want to get the picture
They
as
threw
well?
me out a new teammate.
Well, you guys did a lot of work, you know.
That teammate was
I'm sure a lot of driving.
Congratulations.
Right, yeah.
And so we're going to get that on Hyde Park's Facebook page. Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations. And thank you very much.
I'm always amazed with what the Eagle Scouts do in our town.
I know, so
Congratulations.
many
It's
good
it's a lot of
projects.
work, and
Yes.
I know it's a lot of work on the family to get them there as well, so congratulations.
It is.
Again, thank you. So the next item on the workshop agenda is the audit presentation for our 2017 finances by the BONADIO Group. So would you like to join us at the table, TC? Why don't you come on up too? We have our comptroller here as well.
Hey, TC.
Well, welcome for the second year in a row.
Thank you.
I would imagine that it's somewhat systematically easier once you've done it for the first year to come back in and have conduct the audit a second time.
Yes, always the first year is the most challenging, that's for sure. But yes, it went very smoothly. Before we get started, I'd like to thank TC and his staff for all their help during the audit. It was very much appreciated, and they were ready for us and had the things that we requested.
Great, that's
If you
glad
can just
to
move
hear
that
that.
mic a little bit
Yeah.
closer.
Yeah, you might want to,
Okay.
yeah. Okay, TC, did you have any preparatory remarks?
No, Tim will usually give the presentation, and customary that if you have questions, I'll comment on the end. I mean, you're going to have great results here, so.
Great. Well, that's what we'd like to hear.
So we're ready then.
Yeah. Definitely move the mic closer.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, if the report was bad, you could move the mic
Yeah, yeah,
away.
exactly.
I'm sure Tim has been circumstances where they're not as good, but this is pretty good.
Very good, very good. So hopefully everybody has, and I did bring it with me tonight, so hopefully you have, there's a color document there, an executive summary. So this will sort of walk you through a very high-level review of the audit results, and then I'll talk about a couple of items that we'll highlight from your financial statements as well. So looking at that document, the deliverables there are your town justice court agreed-upon procedures. So each year, the justice courts are required to have an audit of their funds, and it's an agreed-upon procedures that we perform in conjunction with the requirements from the state court handbook. You'll also have your town annual financial report in there with our audit opinion, and then also what's called a SAS 114, or required communications letter. And that letter is a document that's required on any audit to be provided to the members of governance to put in writing certain items. They're not particular to you. I mean, the details are, but a required communication letter is issued on all audits, just to make that clear. So as we look down that executive summary, the summary of audit results. The first area is the Town Justice Court Agreed Upon Procedures Report. And as we noted, it's required. There's an Appendix 10 in the Court Justice publications that notes the items that we're required to test. So we're actually testing each of those items and then reporting back on whether they complied. The notable findings that we had this year were similar to last year. There were some improvements you'll see in the wording where there were some catch up on the bank recs and such, but there were still the items that we noted. The bail accounts were reconciled for both justices. However, there are unreconciled differences relating to bail deposits that cannot be identified that appear to date back several years. So there's still some old stuff that has to be cleaned up there. The current stuff seems to be reconciled. Also, the bail accounts did not agree to the current bail defendants report, and that's really a function of these old items that aren't recorded in there. So they still remain areas to be cleaned up in the justice accounts. Other than that, all of the required items that we tested through that Appendix 10, there were no findings on any of the areas. The next report that you have is your town annual financial report, and we're required to report on two things there. First is our opinion on the financial statements and whether it's fairly stated in all material respects, and then also on your internal controls over financial reporting. We don't issue an opinion on those controls, but we have to gain an understanding of those controls to plan our audit. And if during the testing of those controls we determine that there are control deficiencies, we have to weigh whether they're material and or significant. So we noted under the internal controls over financial reporting, no material weaknesses were identified and also no significant deficiencies. The difference between those two categories are a material weakness is a weakness in your internal control whereby in the normal course of your duties, you would not catch, the weakness being, you would not catch a material error or fraud in your financial statements. A significant deficiency is a step below that that's still required or still serious enough to be reported to the board and or the readers of the financial statements. So you had neither of those. There were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies, and that is consistent with your report from last year as well. The second area that we report on within that large financial statement packet is our auditor opinion on the financial statements. And we were able to obtain and test sufficient evidence to support our opinion, and we issued an unmodified opinion. Previously called an unqualified opinion. It's been a few years they changed the terminology, but what it means is it's a clean opinion. It's also the highest level of assurance that an auditor can give you. And that covers the statements as well as the footnotes that are included in that packet. So those are the two reports within your actual annual financial statement report. I do have a couple of things to highlight, but just wanted to note the justice account reports and the financial statements reports. Any questions on those before I move on to some financial statement items?
How much money are we talking about in the justice accounts?
I don't have the number in front of me. I'm not sure. It is older amounts. Nothing current. All the current stuff has been up to date. I can follow up with the amount, but I
They're
don't
having
have.
trouble getting
No,
it
it's an older.
It's old,
It's
yeah.
from it's about 8, 9 years old.
Oh, really?
It predated even the
Oh.
prior justices. And we met with the current justices last year.
Yeah, they were instructed to clean this up, and we'll have to follow up on
Yeah,
what's going on with this.
and we did follow up again and say, we expect you to follow the procedure that we outlined for them. It's kind of a, if I recall, they had to attempt to research and locate the
right.
people
Right.
Oh, wow.
from all these years ago. I think that was the obstacle.
And what they do, if they can't return the monies, it should be turned over to the state, if there's excess funds.
To the state? Oh, okay. It's not to the town?
Unfortunately,
I mean,
not.
we've been
Unfortunately, no.
holding it all that time. So, yeah, so I think it's just a very tedious process, and that's really been the
I
difficulty.
believe some of it was like bail that needed to be returned back to,
And the people never came
never
for it,
came back
and
for it. so-
locating them.
Right, it's not that, we have monies missing, it's that we can't give the monies back.
Right, so I think
But it's
that-
got to be cleaned up.
Oh, I
It does,
understand, yeah,
yeah,
but I just
yeah.
wanted
I
the
mean,
public to
this is
understand
like-
it. It's not that, we are
This is
missing
like the
funds.
fourth audit in a row that this has
Yes.
been brought up.
Yeah,
Well, I think that it's, one of the things that I said to each department in terms of preparing the information for the website is that people just have to block out time to do
Right.
it, and I think that's
It's
what's
important.
hard, to find the time. Right, Howie? So, all right. Well, other questions on any of those other items?
Oh, let me, just a
yeah,
couple other
go ahead.
items, but I did want to just give
Sure,
you guys
please.
the opportunity if you had any questions on those first items.
Okay.
Okay. Your required communications letter that you have, just to highlight some of the things, there's a lot of stuff in there, but some of the highlights, there were no changes in your accounting principles this year. We'll talk in a second about a new principle that's coming up that you will have to adopt next year, but there were no changes this year that were required. We're also required to note whether there were any difficulties encountered in the audit. We did not, and we noted that. And then also if there are any disagreements with management with regards to accounting practices, accounting principles, treatments, there were no disagreements there either. So the rest of the document, certainly you can look at at your leisure, but it is very boilerplate, very standard letter for any audits. Okay. Just to highlight some items within your financial statements, if you turn to page 16, page 16 is entitled Statement of Revenues, Expenditures, and Changes in Fund Balances for your governmental funds. So these are the funds that you deal with throughout the year. As you know, you have an entity-wide financial statement that pulls all of these together and makes certain other long-term adjustments. But these are really the funds that you work with on a daily basis. And I just wanted to note there, and we'll talk a little budget versus actual in a second, but if you look to the bottom of the page, change in fund balance, your general fund increased 102,000, so relatively flat, a little bit of an increase. The highway fund was up 260,000. Your special district funds were down 4236, which was partly planned as they're winding down. And your capital project funds was a positive 134,000. So again, relative to the fund sizes, pretty close to right on revenues versus expenditures. With regards to the capital projects fund, you'll note that there is a negative fund balance of 500,000 roughly. Not to be alarmed, you do have a ban on your balance sheet that is short-term debt that you've obtained, and that is not recorded as revenue because it is short-term debt. So it's not unusual to see a capital project fund that has short-term debt and has a current deficit while you're waiting for the long-term funding of that. But just so that you're aware, you have that negative deficit fund balance. And then your special purpose fund, again, pretty flat, negative 4,392. So you can see that your funds have all pretty much operated within very close to the revenue and expenditures in this given year. With regards to the capital project funds, you'll see a lot more activity this year as you've started 4 new projects, as we can see outside some of the sidewalks and such. So that's some of the activity within the funds. I also noted that the Highway Department received about $1.5 million in rehab grants. So you'll see if you compare that year over year, an increase there. And also the town has stayed within the 2% tax cap again, you noted for the 6th consecutive year. And I think this coming year, it's actually 2% finally.
Oh, is it back to 2%?
Yeah.
Well, that's because the
Good.
consumer price index has gone up so much that now it's hit that actual cap. The other item I'd like to note on pages 41 and 46, if you can stick your thumb in one of those pages there. There will be a new standard next year. I'm sure you've heard about it. I'm sure I mentioned it last year, GASB 75, which changes your other post-employment benefit liability. Now, this does not affect your funds. This just affects the overall financial statement. But I just wanted to give you an idea of what it would do. Some of the things that will be included, you have some additional disclosure in your financial statements. You'll also have standard discount rate. If you cannot fund your OPEB, which no one in New York can, you have to use the long-term bond rate. So everybody will be using a consistent rate, which is good. You'll be comparing apples to apples. There's also only one method that can be used by all of the actuaries, so again, an apples to apples comparison. But the one thing I did want to note on pages 41 and 46, on page 41, you note there your net OPEB obligation end of year is about $9 million. Okay? You're allowed to, under GASB 45, amortize the liability and not show the 100% amount. And then each year you add on up to 1/30th of it, so that at the end of 30 years you would be whole, you would be 100%. So this 9 million is not the entire amount. It's an amount plus several years of amortization. On page 46, you'll see that the most recent valuation as of January 1st, 2017 is 14.5 million. If all things being equal, and obviously there'll be a different discount rate, there'll be a different methodology, but all things being equal, what you would be looking at is almost double what you record right now. So you've got 9 million, this would be almost 15 million. That's what you're gonna see next year in the entity-wide financial statements. You're gonna be recording that whole amount because you can no longer amortize under the new requirements. So the expectation should be next year that you're going to see a much larger amount in the OPEB liability, which of course is going to reduce your net position, I'm certain, to a deficit amount or a bigger deficit amount. It sounds bad, but the one good thing about it is it's consistent. Everyone will be doing it the same way now. The bond rating agencies like that, they're aware of it. There's no issue with them seeing suddenly a larger deficit amount. But they like that because they'll be comparing apples to apples. Right now you can have some folks that amortized and some that didn't. It'll all be the same now. The other good thing about that is each year, because you're recording that amortization, you're recording a very large hit to your bottom line each year from that amortization. That is not your normal activity during the year. Once the amortization is gone, it'll truly just be the activity that's occurring in there, which will be very similar to your pay-as-you-go that you're recording now in the funds. So you won't see this huge spike of these large expenditures that right now are primarily your amortization. So that will be a plus.
How many years is the amortization period?
Well, you'll have no amortization period now.
Okay, so,
So now it'll just be, so for instance, in this scenario, you've amortized a portion of it, and so you're only up to 9 million of the actual amount of 14.5 million.
okay.
In GASB 75, if these numbers were all the same, you would just record the 14.5. You couldn't amortize it. You just show the whole amount.
Okay.
So this is the, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get a better grasp. This is what we owe retired employees throughout a 30-year period, is that?
This is your estimate of what you will owe, and if you close the doors today, theoretically, you would owe
Right.
to everyone.
To everyone.
And right now, you pay as you go. Whatever your payments are each year,
Right.
that's all that you pay.
Right.
And that's what you record as your expense. This is, if we close the door today, and it's an estimate, so it's, you don't know, to some extent, you're estimating who will still be here, or what percentage of people will actually retire, and you'll owe them the benefits. It is a very large estimate. But theoretically, it's, if you close the doors today, this is
That's
the
what these
estimate of what you
numbers,
would owe.
okay.
Right.
And you're saying they changed that reporting requirement to equalize what everyone reports? Is that, was the intent?
That's the main reason why they did it, is to allow for an apples to apples comparison. There were so many different methodologies that could be used before. There was the very large difference of do you or do you not amortize. And then from a footnote disclosure, they wanted to get more consistent with what you saw in the pension, where you see a 10-year trend analysis. That will also be in there. They also liked, with the pension items, you had the +1 or -% of a discount rate. So what if it shifted and they showed you the different liabilities? That'll be in there as well. So there'll be some enhanced disclosure, but I think the biggest thing is that it's going to be consistent now across the board for everyone.
And this doesn't affect like bond ratings and things like that?
Yeah, so we get that question a lot, is what's this gonna mean if suddenly, I go from 9 million to 14.5 million? It shows that I'm in a worse condition, right? The bond rating agencies are fully, they knew enough to look at this page before, even though it wasn't in there, so that's already factored in.
Okay.
But what I would say is that you have, by them looking at apples to apples, I had a county executive that came from Michigan, and he was very surprised that he couldn't fund OPEB, because in Michigan he could. And said, nope, you can't do it in New York. when they're looking at the financial statements of somebody in Michigan, they're gonna look at that and go, wow, they are partially funded or all funded, so they are in a better scenario than a New York government. However, one of the things that we have going for us in New York is our pension plans are very well funded in comparison to most other states. So they're also looking at that, and they would say, well, Michigan's liability for the pension isn't as good. So now it just allows them to look at that all in a very consistent manner.
I got you.
See, the question you should have for Tim is, does he have any client that has this liability funded?
Well,
In New York State.
I suppose that would be illegal then, right?
Right,
no,
right.
No, they cannot. Well, I will say this, though, some of the BOCES and a handful of school districts got in trouble a few years ago for that. That OSC did some reports on them saying, you know what, you're holding monies that you're not supposed to be because you can't fund this. So actually, I don't, but a couple of years ago, we may have. So,
Well, we did create a reserved fund balance, didn't we, for like when people
Retire.
For
leave and
compensated
you have to-
absences.
Right, compensated
that's
absences, okay.
absolutely fine.
Oh, but this is for like retirement.
Retirement,
This is
right.
health
I get it.
insurance.
Okay.
Who changed the law? Who decided to change it?
which law?
The one where we,
The
Oh, the
reporting.
GASB 75?
yeah.
The standard setters, the GASB,
The crazy
Governmental Auditing
GASB,
Standard.
the Government Accounting Standards Board.
Great.
They got nothing else to do over in
That's what
Norwalk.
it
Yeah,
As long as it's
that's
not the Greek
what I think.
guys.
It's a
They
Wizard
sit
of
over
Oz.
in Norwalk, Connecticut and come up with these ideas.
It's like a
Sit
wizard.
around and
Used to
think
be
about it.
Stanford, but now it's Norwalk, I think.
The last thing I just wanted to highlight, and certainly after that, I'm open to any questions you have as well, but just on page 49, this is your budget versus actual for the general fund. And so this just shows what your original budget was, your final modified budget, the actual numbers, and then compares that. So if you look to the bottom of the page, the leftmost column, numerically that is, you have the change in fund balance. Your original budget anticipated that you would use approximately $120,000 of fund balance. You modified it throughout the year to where you were noting that you thought you may use up to $450,000 of fund balance. The column next to that shows you the actual, where you actually had a surplus of $102,000. So you achieved $552,000 better than you anticipated budget-wise, and about $200,000 versus what your original budget was, to the plus. Most of that you can see came from a share of, off to the right-hand corner, you'll see in total revenues, $327,000 to the plus on your revenues. Part of that was under non-property taxes, $180,000 you were over. And then you'll also see on the expenditure side, towards the bottom of the page there, $236,000 to the plus. And that's your variance between your budget and your actual. So you did better both on the revenue side as well as the expenditure side, and that combination of items led to about a $500,000 better than anticipated for the budget.
Well,
Great job,
that's,
Supervisor.
that's good news.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
And our
so
fund
the-
balance, I'm sorry.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry, just the revenues were the better mortgage tax as well as sales tax?
Yeah,
the
sales tax and
non-taxable
mortgage tax
revenues?
a little bit, and then the
And-
department revenues, that is explained in the MD&A. You'll see
Mm-hmm.
some, the first, I think it's 9 pages summarize the results, the analytical results. But I'd like to have Tim cover page 52, which is the general fund balance sheet, and page 54, which is a highway fund. I know you, the
A
board would be
healthy
interested in
fund
the
balance percent to operating budget, where are we with that and what should it be at?
Well, definitely as your auditor, I can't say where it should be at because
Well,
that's
we have a
subjective.
policy.
We have a policy,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, I mean, we're at that.
But, yeah, Tom, anything in particular you wanted me to go over
Well,
on these pages?
they like to, if you just cover the, they like to see the breakdown coverage of the fund balance. You see the change in the total fund balances, how it's changed from
Yeah.
2017 to 16.
You're looking on page 53?
Yeah,
52.
52.
So we ended 2016 with 1.7 million, and we ended 2017 with 1.8 million, right?
Right.
So that's
and-
that $100,000
Right.
That's
difference we
great,
talked
yeah.
about.
Right.
Yeah, and the difference here is that, at this point, and I'll come with some suggestions maybe during this fiscal year, after we look at a 6-month actual performance, but the unassigned is up to, I believe, 17%, and that's the question that Ken had asked, 17% of your expenditure, which is well above your policy covers for a minimum of 10, I believe. 5 to 10, I think, is the range. The unassigned to the expenditure percentage. We had assigned fund balance beginning last year that we put away money for capital projects, namely to fund the local sources of capital projects, your big pedestrian projects, the portions of the highway improvements, facilities, the buildings, et cetera. So that has gone down because we used some of that. The unassigned is up. So we'll see how the 6-month performance is, and we'll take a look at that.
But TC, I just want to interject that I don't know how you accounted for the SAM grants that we have not yet received, but are anticipating for both the highway facilities improvement project as well as the pedestrian. So I assume because we don't actually have the cash that it's not reflected here.
Right.
Is that right? So, we're.
Those are in the capital project funds anyway. They're in a separate page at the end of the report.
Oh, okay, but so, we, obviously for the 500,000 for the SAM, are you saying that you couldn't, put some of that back into the assigned?
No, we have that earmarked, hopefully that you do get that grant to
Okay.
clear out what they call local sources.
Okay, all right, so do you
Undefined.
have that elsewhere?
Yeah, I have that
Okay.
in the capital
Okay.
project fund as local sources as a receivable,
Okay,
because your grant is pending the allocation on those line items.
got it,
Yeah, that's what we're gonna do.
okay.
Well, it's really good news for Hyde Park to have a solid fund balance
Yes.
that will let us, fund the projects and the services
That's right.
that make our community better. It was a number of hard years with staying under the tax cap, but being able to build up not only the snow reserve and the other reserves and then have a fund balance that we can actually put towards some improvements, some road improvements and things, while still staying under the tax cap is really, I feel
Very
like we
good.
did a good thing for the residents.
I
Yeah,
agree.
and if you look at page 54, that's the highway fund, and you'll see the change in the total fund balance. It's up considerably, like 260,000.
Was that partially a FEMA payment that
No,
did that?
basically, I'll mention one, the county snow plowing
Oh, yeah.
agreement has worked to the benefit of the town.
That's
good.
nice, that's
Great.
great.
Because of the winter, we did sell some salt to other governments, that was exceeding the budget, and then there was some lower expenditures in certain areas on the highway budget, but basically they call it assigned here because they have to report it as assigned, but I consider it unassigned. We did designate some of it for use, but the snow reserve fund is 400,000 of that balance there. That's restricted, and we're gonna cap that now, so you got that. We're gonna use that for other purposes ongoing, maybe redirect that to some debt service on the band. So,
Great.
the highway fund, if you go back, I think, like, maybe 2012 or 13, it was a deficit.
Yeah.
When we started, it was a deficit, yeah. It was in
So
the
that's
red.
pretty
we have
impressive, yeah.
reconstructed the highway fund balance.
Yeah.
So, it's a very healthy situation there in the highway.
Now we can spend it on some
So
roads.
far.
We have our
More
highway
paving, Howie,
supervisor.
more paving.
So we'll make sure we don't get heavy snowstorms in November, December.
Yeah. I see you getting all anxious there. He's getting squirrely over there.
And the page you might want to look at when you get a chance is I believe, is that the last page, 60, the capital projects length schedule?
I'm sorry, what page?
Page 60.
Okay,
You had asked about the capital projects.
yeah,
Page 60 really, they call it a capital project length schedule, and it shows the,
Oh, it's smart.
need a magnifying
can't
glass.
see
A
these.
microscope.
yeah. You have to
Kinda
have
lights up in
microglasses,
there.
but this shows you your open capital projects,
Oh, good, this is.
The
great.
cumulative authorizations, okay?
do
It shows you the prior year expenses, the current year, it shows you the cumulative, and then it shows the method of financing, which is the funding sources. So you see the town center revitalization, the scenic study, the equipment acquisition, those are the trucks that we bought like at last minute in December
Yeah,
for the three departments. The highway machinery, which is a cumulative for 4 years. The new one for the highway facilities, buildings and roofs of the buildings over there. The Route 9 first improvements, that's the 1.5. The Pine Woods Road, of course, the second one is not recognized on here, but this is as of 12/31 December. This is an interesting schedule.
yeah.
It's,
That's a CDBG.
shows you your capital projects. So that's not reflected, that's reflected in the capital project fund.
Okay,
But this is a very interesting schedule to take a look at.
Yep.
Yeah, because a
And-
lot of, well, probably the majority of those were all funded through grants, so that's, you know.
Yeah,
it's a-
you'll see the method of financing, and then you'll see the outstanding bond anticipation note. Some of it's temporary financing, some of it will be replaced by grants, some of it will end up local sources, we don't know at this point, you know.
Yeah, so the far two columns there, and albeit sort of small, but the far two columns, the fund balance is the second to last column, so that details by project the amount of fund balance, positive or negative, and that total column agrees back to the fund balance that you're showing on your balance sheet. And then similarly, off to the side, the last column shows for each of those projects how much you banned, what band payable you have relative to those projects, and that total also agrees back to your balance sheet.
Great.
Pretty good.
lots of details here, thank you.
Well, I personally want to thank, TC and your staff. I know you guys work extremely hard. I want to thank Howie and the rest of the department staffs for their diligence. But I really want to thank, Supervisor for really being at the helm here. And, I came in day one with you here, and it was scary times. And these reports are just fantastic. So congratulations to you as well. And, it's a good day for Hyde Park. So thank you for the report. I'm really excited to see this. So.
Thank
The
you.
Supervisor and the council members have done an excellent job of oversight. And it's much better than when I first arrived here.
Oh, there's no.
Well, we know we have to answer to you, so.
When I walk into town hall, I go into his office. I said, "Hey, Dad, can I get some money?"
Can I have $5?
No
But-
paper clips.
But
No, it's definitely a team effort, and it's not just the town board and the comptroller's office, it's
Right.
everyone in
But-
town hall.
But what's
works on it.
exciting is that, you look at our police department, they have current vehicles,
Yeah.
You look at the highway department where we actually have, new trucks and new equipment, and we're still 6 years in a row being under the tax cap and having a great fund balance. You're really managing well, and congratulations.
Thank
And
you.
it's an exciting time to be part of this. So.
And you've undertaken additional, road paving this year.
Right.
Under a
Much
new
needed
incentive. We'll see what
drainage and
happens with that.
and paving, so I'm looking forward to that, so.
Beside all the other capital projects that are going up, but
Right.
the road paving is new, and then we got pedestrian improvements, so.
Yeah,
Good.
and it's really changed the conversation in Hyde Park, which is something that when we came into office intended to do. And I think that there's like a synergy between the private and the public sector. And we're seeing that in addition to these positive actions and accomplishments at the town level, that private investment is also increasing. And I think it's partially about optimism and confidence and knowing that as an investor that you can predict what your tax liability in terms of property taxes are going to be. So there's a lot of components of confidence and predictability that strong financial management allows, not just for the town, but for the investors and property owners. So, not to say we don't still have work to do, and that's what we're doing. Emily's going to give an update, I'm sure, on the sewer progress, and we're working very much towards a plan of expanding our tax base through infrastructure improvements, and so we hope to see even better better reports in terms of our fund balance even in future years. So thank you. Thank you very
Excellent,
much.
thank you. Cece,
Yes,
thank you,
and-
really,
And we
thank you.
appreciate how easy it was to work with you, and it was great, yeah. We actually had another audit going on simultaneously, the State Comptroller's Office, and I think she may actually still be here.
She said she might be here till 2019.
Good thing she's really nice, and she likes us, and we like her.
The state has a tendency to just stick around for a while, to
Yeah,
try to
but-
find something.
Yeah, but I think we're going to be good on that,
That's
too.
their
Good.
Okay.
All right, well, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Have a
Thank
good
you, guys.
night.
Thank
Safe
you.
trip home.
Thank you.
Okay, so.
See you guys, thank you. Hey, thank you so
Good
much,
night,
really,
guys.
again, very nice. Thank
Thanks
you
a
so
lot.
much.
Appreciate that.
So at our last meeting, I just gave an update on some of the things that we're working on, and I know the town board members are always working hard too, so I just asked if they might want to hit some highlights. I know they won't get to everything, but, you know, just to, just kind of hit the high notes in terms of things you've been working on, and so if you want to, Emily, you want to start, or?
Sure. Okay. So I guess the biggest thing I've been working on is the downtown projects that we've been continuing on with our work to try to transform the Route 9 corridor. The NYSERDA funded project for the town center planning is finally reaching the finish line, which is very exciting. That went on for a year with a great steering committee and a couple of really positive and packed house public meetings. And so we're at the point now that we have the final plans that came out of that
Big old,
This
big thing right there,
this document?
which has been
327 pages.
really thrilling to have NYSERDA having approved all of those deliverables. They're ready to call it done and pay us. So the last step is that we're going to be introducing that tonight as an amendment to the town's comprehensive plan. And it's exciting because the town's comp plan is on the older side and is probably due for an update. And it's a huge project to update the whole thing. And I think that by going through this process, we focused in on the area that was most important, where we really want to attract development, and updated that. So I think that was strategic, and we were able to do it through a grant, which is a good thing for the town. So that'll be introduced tonight, and then for a public hearing on the 18th. And then some next steps coming out of that, of course, the biggest piece of that is the sewer that we all know that we need. We've got a lot of funding lined up for it. I think we're up to $5.25 million now lined up for it. We've got now in our hands a feasibility plan that says how we can do a sewer in Hyde Park. And so the next steps, we are continuing to look for more funding. We met with the Hudson Valley Regional Council about federal economic development funding. We're going to be working on another application for this year's New York State funding cycle, try to get some more funding together for the sewer, and at the same time, we've kind of got some parallel courses. Delaware Engineering is going to be developing some better price data so that we kind of know more what the property owners would be paying, so that we can work with the property owners and get some support for forming a sewer district. Another piece that's going to be coming out of this is that the report recommended some zoning updates for the Route 9 corridor, the main commercial district, and we are hiring a planner to work with us, Bonnie Franson, to get those finished up. So those are the next steps on that. Changing gears a little, I've been working on the drinking water intermunicipal group, which we just had a signing. Dave and Aileen and I went down to the Maris Boathouse. And it's really exciting that all 7 municipalities that get drinking water from the Hudson River all signed on to this. So we now have a true intermunicipal council that will be moving forward on Hudson River drinking water protection. And let's see, so Besides that, I've also participated, the Hudson River Estuary Program has a regional roundtable on drinking water. So it's an issue that people are paying attention to lately, especially with the Newburgh water contamination and different threats to the Hudson River, and people are paying attention. So it's a good time for us to get on board with that, and hopefully it'll also help us attract funding for our sewer and possibly other water projects. Besides that, I've helped out with some of the local laws, the sign law, the solar update, which is on the agenda tonight, and just a number of different issues in some of the neighborhoods. There's been some debris dumping, a property maintenance issue, a logging truck issue. One tricky one was someone burning brush, and I just wanted to take a minute to make sure people know what the rules are for burning brush, which is that you can, as long as it's controlled, and controlled, it has to be in a container, you have to have someone watching it, and if there's any questions, you can call the police, and they know those rules. But if your fire is making your neighbor's house fill with smoke, it's probably not controlled. So, yeah, I mean, it's tough in neighborhoods. Yeah, that's what I had to say.
It sounds like a lot, a lot of work, especially on the local laws. They're, it's, people have this concept that things are often arbitrary, but I assure you they're far from it. It takes a long process to massage the language to make sure that we capture exactly what we're trying to do. So thanks, Emily.
Sure.
Thanks, Emily.
Dave,
Yeah, a few things. Whatever Aileen and Emily decide, I go along with, and it's all those, I ditto everything she said. It was really an impressive ceremony, by the way, down at the Marist Boat Club, when we signed up with the other 6 communities to form the consortium to help our water source at the source. No, yes,
Right.
because we get it out of the river, and that's the end. Everything goes into the river,
Exactly, yeah.
so fighting for that is very important to all the communities involved.
Yeah.
It was a great job, and they did it quickly. They got together. Anyway, in my ward, which is Ward 2 here along 9 and this side of 9G, the Hyde Park Free Library hired an architect to redesign the inside of the building to bring it up to the standards of today, with improved flow and Wi-Fi, electricity, lighting, and they'll be giving that information out as it comes along. So that's really an exciting thing for that building, who was built by President Roosevelt's mother in 1927, I think. So it was the first fieldstone municipal building in Hyde Park. You had the 3 schools after that, the post office, and then the Roosevelt Library and Museum and the Wallace Center, so they're all fieldstone.
So this was built in 1927?
1927,
Good to know.
yeah. 91 years ago. The house next to Hyde Park Elementary School, a little greenhouse there that is kind of run down. The person who owns it is going to put a B&B in there, and he got an extension from the planning board to get a little more time to get everything together. Hope he gets that done, that'll be a nice improvement in that area.
I had heard he pulled a demolition permit, do you know?
Well, I don't know what his problem is. He asked for an extension anyway.
Okay.
So
They awarded it.
I think
to
he's
him.
trying to, yeah.
Maybe a financing.
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, I think it's probably financing, yeah.
Well, I do notice that he keeps his lawn very well.
He does. It's a lot better.
And I'm
It's
very
nice for the parade.
appreciative of that.
Yes. There's one house next to that. It's not that great, but that's another day. I'd like to thank the Hyde Park Visual Environment Committee and the Chamber of Commerce for all the work on 9 and 9G and making the 2 corridors look much better than they've ever looked before. And it's things like that. It just gets better each year. And that's voluntary work, and I really appreciate it. The new Sake Brewery down here, I guess it's a brewery, is going to come before the planning board. And I realize that one of the biggest reasons we got that is probably because of the water. We have a great water supply, and they probably wouldn't even given it a second thought if they had to go to wells or something. It wouldn't have been able to do. So I think the water, like Emily said, is our most valuable asset, and it's extremely important at the source. Bellafield Hotel is still going through the planning board process. They had a little delay on a few things, but it's going along nice.
So
That's
Dave,
gonna-
can I just interrupt?
Yeah.
So you go to all the planning board meetings?
Well,
Or
if I
most
don't
of
attend, I watch them on TV,
Okay.
but I try and make them, you know.
Thanks, that's great.
It's good to see how the planning board reacts with the people.
Sure.
And I'm a big fan of theirs, because
They work very hard.
they really do. The Dutchess County Water and Wastewater Authority now runs all of our water and sewer districts that the town formerly owned. And it's a much better for the residents in those districts, because they have the expertise and that's all they do. And it's a big load off the town board, which changes every 2 years to try and put Band-Aids on it. It was a mess. So that's a huge improvement, and people don't realize that. I don't know how many times we were stuck on problems with either the water or the sewer in those areas. Now it's in much better hands. There's also a new restaurant across from the new Roosevelt Firehouse on 9G called Firehouse Cafe, and very good results from people going there. They like it, so it's a lively place. The Pinewoods, yeah, well, anyway, the town center north is what I'm talking about. People can see all the construction going on there. With the Mavis building and the parking lot in that one, and the next owner of that piece of land, the strip mall, has new parking in there, new sidewalks, new curbing, and really great to see, because we only needed that for like 50 years. And there's no more potholes, they have it curbed. And when you go past Mavis now, there's speed bumps in there. It was laid out well. Again, kudos to the planning department for getting them to get that building designed the way it is. They encouraged them to do it. The owners went along with it, and I'm really appreciative of that. It's a nice looking building. Finally, the parks in Ward 2, you have Pinewoods, Riverfront, and Doty Avenue. I have hats off to the Recreation Commission for the department for taking care of them so well, mowing the lawn, raking it up, trimming the trees. They're the best I've seen in many years, the best shape they've been in, and people have commented how nice they are, and I'd particularly like to thank Carl and Robin for that. They really work hard. I think I forgot a few things, but that's enough. There's so much going on in Ward 2 right now. It's like, it's exciting.
Well, can we just, I know you don't want to toot your own horn, but I
No, I
just
don't.
want to say
Oh, I
about the
forgot the
Veterans
plaque.
plaque.
I forgot the plaque.
Yes, Dave.
That it was so touching to see that on Veterans
Yes.
Day,
Yeah, really
to
was.
have that plaque unveiled. And there was one veteran there whose name
Oh.
had been missing from the plaque, and he was just really
Touched and
just
moved.
very
Yeah, really
emotional
touched
about
by that, yeah.
seeing his name on there. And so it's a good deed. Well done.
Thanks, yeah, well,
Thank you for
Took
doing
a
Supervisor
lot
that.
of
pushed me on
time
that.
on it, Dave. Appreciate
And
that.
our former historian, too.
Yes.
Barbara Hoban's
Yep.
helped a lot
Yes,
on that.
Barbara Hoban
Yep.
was very helpful.
Very helpful.
So I appreciate that. Thanks, Dave. And Joe, I know you've been busy too.
Yeah. One of the things I've been working on as liaison to the Recreation Commission is
hear him.
looking into a new pool for the town. Right now, we're looking at some proposals, and it's really in the, review design phase, but that's one of the things we're doing. And the Rec Commission also, we're starting to visit town parks to see what repairs are needed and improvements are needed. So that's exciting because we're trying to be proactive instead of waiting for something to break.
Green Tree Park needs literally anything.
Well, yeah. Well, it was funny because we're trying to figure out with Green Tree Park exactly what to do with Green Tree Park. So
Anything.
yeah. Yeah.
Is that Ben that got this?
Nick
You know, it's funny when
Swing.
I lived there a long time ago. They had a swing set, and that was it. And
Yeah.
we used to use it all the time.
Sure.
All the time. But the other
Boy,
thing.
that Roosevelt area got a lot now, doesn't it?
Okay, the other thing I'm working on is the new town website. I'm on the what do we call ourselves?
Our
Warriors.
website, Warriors.
Website Warriors.
Yep.
And we're working with Civic Plus to create the new town website. I'm actually the liaison for the recreation, the trails, and the justice department. So I think we'll all be meeting with our individual departments to try to get things updated before the 8/24 date, when Civic Plus will move the content over to the new site for review and training. Also part of the liaison to the audit committee, we just heard our audit. We actually interviewed and talked about who should be doing our audits for this year, and then made that recommendation. We chose BONADIO. The audit obviously was completed, and the committee is going to be getting together actually on the 12th to review the results in more detail and to evaluate the performance and what we want to do for next year for the auditing firm. Some of the things I'm doing in town are Relay for Life. Last year, Aileen had asked me to help bring Relay for Life to Hyde Park because it was coming, they could no longer be in Rhinebeck, so I did that. And we had a successful Relay for Life event at the FDR High School last year. This past Saturday, we just had our second one, another success, raising money to battle cancer, and again, it was held at the FDR High School, so we appreciate working with the youth there and the high school allowing us to be there. The district leadership team, Dave, that was one you didn't mention too. You were on that also.
More than I was.
Yeah, the district leadership team we worked over the past year to evaluate the needs of the schools, and we just helped to pass a vote for new science labs and building improvements. And the science labs, they like to say, was predated man landing on the moon. That's when they were there. So they were in desperate need of repair. And then there are some building improvements such as new roofing and that kind of thing. Hyde Park Visual Environment Committee, I'm the education chair on that, and but one of the things that we did was we participate every year, the youth from the United Methodist Church and myself, we actually, the town hall up through Cranberries is our place to weed and rake and clean up. And we do a spring and fall cleanup for that. And we participated this year. We just did that a few weeks ago. And as education co-chair, we just hosted a town education event actually at the church on native plants and management of natural areas, which was presented by Meg Ronsheen. Meg's a Vassar professor of biology, and she's also a former director of environmental studies program. She was extremely well received, and she was very, very, very informative on that topic. Also, we just, as education chair, we just attended the FDR High School Annual Award Night. We presented for the second year in a row our annual scholarship award of $500 to an FDR graduating senior who demonstrated town volunteerism and community service, and this year's award went to Ian Cooper. So congratulations to Ian again on that. Hyde Park Education Foundation, I was part of the committee for that, participated on the committee to organize the Memorial Day weekend Field of Honor flag display at the home of FDR, which was absolutely beautiful. They did a great job with that. And Hyde Park Rotary, we always help host the food booth, the youth and myself, the United Methodist Church youth and myself, help out the Rotary by hosting a Touch a Truck food booth, and we did that a few weeks ago, and this was actually our third year of helping out there. Also miscellaneous constituent issues, maintenance, that kind of
Property
thing.
maintenance stuff.
Yeah.
That's always.
That kind of thing.
It's always an issue.
Yep.
Well, thanks, Joe.
All right, so
Yeah, Ken, I guess it's you.
I don't have to do too much when I got a crew like this up here. So I'm the liaison with the police department and the highway department. I've had several meetings with the department heads, with the police department, just going over concerns and with equipment, personnel, and just everyday activities that are going on over there. It's been wonderful working with our highway superintendent, Howie Fisher, with getting equipment that he needs or any concerns. I mean, he really, I appreciate you being here. You really do a fantastic job and just make life a lot easier for all of us here in Hyde Park. Still, Ward 4 is the hot button for a lot of properties that seem to fall into decay. And I tell you, Rich has been wonderful to work for. With Rich, he has gotten a lot of properties cleaned up for me out there in Ward 4.
Rich Longendike.
Yeah, he has been fantastic.
awesome, yeah.
I can give Rich a call and say, hey, there's, this property looks like it's a hayfield now, and 2 days later it's being mowed.
Yeah.
And he's been really, really good. And we got some properties cleaned up on Salt Point, the one there on Quaker. So there's a lot of great activities happening out there. chamber events, still dealing with the chamber, working with the chamber. And of course, the last thing I've been working on is trying to get a fair contract with Royal Karting with our rubbish and all that. So,
But you did also assisted me in the negotiations with the union contracts.
Yes,
Very
you did
helpful
that.
there. You're very good at seeing both sides of the situation, and appreciate that help. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, good.
So, but yeah, it's just it's great team effort that we all have here, and I'm just excited to be part of it. So, thank you.
So, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for working so hard, which you always do. And I just wanted to bring everybody up to speed on our assessor situation. About a month ago, our assessor resigned for another position. We've been filled that with an acting assessor, Chris Borek, and he jumped right in and is helping us there. The only issue is that he's not available during daytime hours frequently. So I just want to thank the public for their patience with that, and he's very, very good about getting back to you by email or phone. And I'm working on attempting to do a shared service with the town of Pauling. So I've had some conversations with the new supervisor there, and we're contemplating sharing the assessor as well as the assessor aide. So he was going to talk with his board last night. I wanted to put that out to you guys tonight. We also have had some ads that are being circulated on the professional sites, and I've had a couple of inquiries from various people that I will be talking with just to see, what they have and what they can offer. And, our goal really is to have someone in town hall during working hours, because we know that's what people expect and want. But the business of assessing has changed quite a lot over the last number of years. And I think a lot of it is because of the obvious changes to technology. So I think that there's just a trend within local governments to share assessors, to have a hierarchy of an assessor and an assessor aide. So we're just going to continue to explore that, but we want to make sure that we, meet all the state requirements, that's critical, as well as the county requirements, and that we keep our role up to date, and that we have staff available for residents when they need that. So I'll keep everybody apprised on that, but I feel optimistic that we're closing the gap and finding a solution, so that's good. So, okay, well, I did also just want to mention, I could do it at the end, but I had forgotten at our last meeting to make note that one of our former town board members, Jim Monks, passed away last month, and just acknowledge him for his service to the town on the town board. And that was a nice role that he served, and I just want to offer our sympathies to his wife and family, and thank them for supporting him while he was on the town board. So, okay, do you guys want to go forward with the resolutions? And we may end up doing a little explanation in the process, especially for the first one. Emily, if you want to start that.
Sure. Resolution commencing the local law adoption process for local law D of the year 2018, entitled A Local Law Amending Chapter 108 of the Town Code with regard to maximum impervious coverage for solar farms in the Greenbelt zoning district. Do you want me to explain
Sure,
what it is?
yeah.
So maybe a year ago or so, we adopted this this new allowed use in the Greenbelt zoning district only, which is solar farms. So our solar law allows small solar installations on people's homes and yards anywhere in town, but only large-scale solar farms can only be in the Greenbelt. The Greenbelt has a restriction that the maximum impervious surface can only be 15% of a site. And since we passed that law, we've gotten, I think, 5 now? Different applications to the planning board to do these large solar facilities, which is really a great thing. I mean, it's not only clean energy, local energy, it's also going to add to the tax base. And, well, I guess, I don't know if it's the tax base per se, but we'll get pilot payments out of them as a commercial use. And of course, the planning board will follow the law carefully to make sure that they are not a visual blight by having plenty of screening and locating them appropriately. But it's really a nice way for people to be able to keep large parcels as open space and do something productive. Anyway, the upshot is that as those applications came in, we kind of knew when we passed the law that it might need tweaking in the future as we kind of see how these things play out. And it turns out that 15% maximum impervious coverage in the everywhere in the Greenbelt district is a little bit onerous for getting solar farms to work. And so going back and forth with the planning board and the zoning administrator and really trying to dig into that, it seemed like changing it to 25% for solar farms only in the Greenbelt would resolve that problem without allowing them to be, massive and still allowing them to be screened, but to be economical for developers to build. So that's what this law is, to just change the bulk table in the zoning to allow up to 25% impervious coverage for solar only.
And Emily, what's the definition of the green belt?
Oh, yeah, okay, so the town zoning has kind of the business districts are kind of their own, and the neighborhoods are their own districts, and then all the surrounding area, the more rural parts of town, are either along the river is the waterfront, but most of the rural parts of town are the green belt.
Are the green belt.
Right, so they're the places you would think of as more rural in the town.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and then we're setting the public hearing for this for June 18th. Is that right?
Yes.
7:50, oh,
18th, right?
yeah.
Yes.
So I'll second this.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Resolution 64-2 of 2018, resolution approving budget revisions to the town of Hyde Park for the period of May 2018, budget revisions number 2018-05.
Second?
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Resolution 64-3 of 2018, resolution scheduling a public hearing on the adoption of the planning and engineering report for redevelopment of the town center dated May 2018 as an appendix to the Town of Hyde Park Comprehensive Plan.
I'll second that.
And so Emily reviewed that just a little bit ago, and I hope that the public has been kind of keeping abreast of that information as it develops. But Donna, do you have a copy of this for people to view?
I do.
Okay, so, and we have an electronic copy, I believe?
So
or-
your choices to look at it are, I'll tell you
It's
all
on
the
the
choices.
website.
One is that there are hard copies in Donna's office and I think in the supervisor's office and the planning office. Two, there's a PDF that's the entire document right on the front page of the town website that Steve posted. And then the third option is if you go to hpdowntown.com, all the component reports are posted there, so you can look at any individual component that you want, if that's easier than looking at the whole big document. So those are all the ways people can look at it and get back to us with any comments.
Okay.
That big document is on the
And
website.
Right.
then,
And it's all the same stuff that was
Okay.
presented a few weeks ago by Delaware Engineering.
Okay, so all in favor?
Right.
Just have,
Oh, and then Warren has. oh.
Yeah, so we each of you has a part one of the environmental assessment form. This is a type 1 action under seeker.
Right.
And the town is the only involved agency. We need to, as part of the resolution, we're adopting the part one of the full environmental assessment form, which is really primarily informational, and it's a shorter process in terms of the part one for adopting local laws and amendments to our comprehensive plan. So you each have a copy of that.
Right.
And when you pass the resolution, which you just did, you'll also be adopting the part one, and the supervisor will be able to sign that. And then in conjunction with the public hearing, we'll be reviewing the part two of the environmental assessment form and a part three, which we are working on with our consultants. And we're hoping that we'll pass the local law and also finish our environmental review at the public hearing.
So go ahead and sign this now.
You can sign it now or tomorrow.
And then Donna receives it or you do?
You can give it to Donna.
Okay.
And Donna, are you set with the public hearing notice
I
on
am.
that?
Yeah,
Yep.
sure.
Excellent. Thank you.
Good to go?
Yeah, okay.
Resolution 64-4 of 2018, resolution authorizing police officer Thomas Marabella and Joshua Tucker to attend the instructor development class July 16, 2018 through July 27, 2018 at the Dutchess County Sheriff's Office Training Room.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 645 of 2018, resolution acknowledging the resignation of police officer Christopher Miller from the Town of Hyde Park Police Department.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution 64-6 of 2018, resolution authorizing the release of a driveway opening bond by the Town of Hyde Park Highway Department for Fiskello Enterprises LTD.
Second?
And all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so with that, may I have a motion to adjourn?
I just wanted to,
Oh,
right before we
oh,
adjourn, I just
sure.
want to thank the Recreation Department for a wonderful parade, Memorial Day parade. It went off really well. The Memorial Day service was fantastic, so I just wanted to give a shout out to Diane and all her helpers there.
Yep, I agree,
Thanks,
thank
Ed.
you. Okay, so then may I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
And a
Second.
second? And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
See you tomorrow.
see you tomorrow.
Is that one? Are you coming tomorrow?
Okay. Let's see.
Okay.